coastal family lived the dream. Jack, a dedicated architect in his late 30s, had recently married his college sweetheart Emily. Their love story was one of passion and perseverance, filled with shared dreams of starting a family and building a life together. However, when Jack's father, Robert, faced severe financial difficulties after a series of failed business ventures, he found himself in dire need of a place to stay. Jack, raised with strong family values, didn't hesitate. He and Emily welcomed Robert into their home, believing that families should support one another in times of need. At first, the transition was seamless. Robert, a charismatic man in his early 60s, quickly adapted to life in his son's modern home. He took over cooking duties, whipping up hearty meals that reminded Jack of his childhood. Emily admired Robert's energy and warmth, often finding herself drawn to his captivating stories of adventure and the many lessons he had learned throughout his life. As the days turned into weeks, however, an undercurrent of tension began to ripple through the household. Jack, consumed by work and trying to support his father, found himself spending less time at home. Robert, on the other hand, found himself increasingly alone with Emily. Their conversations deepened as they shared thoughts about their dreams and fears, revealing vulnerabilities they had never expressed before. What began as innocent companionship soon transformed into an emotional connection that neither could ignore. One warm evening, after Jack had left for a late project meeting, Robert and Emily found themselves watching a classic film in the living room. The soft glow of the television illuminated their faces, and the atmosphere was charged with an unspoken tension. As they laughed at a humorous scene, Robert accidentally brushed his hand against Emily's. They both froze, a moment of hesitation hanging in the air before they burst into nervous laughter. Yet, beneath that laughter lay a deeper current of attraction that neither could deny. Days turned into weeks, and their relationship evolved into something more complicated. Robert's compliments grew more intimate, and Emily found herself responding in kind. She was captivated by his charm, the way he made her feel valued and understood. It was a dangerous game, one with high stakes that neither of them fully grasped. One fateful night, after sharing a bottle of wine and reminiscing about their lives, Robert leaned in and kissed Emily. The kiss was unexpected, electric, and filled with raw emotion. She pulled back, her heart racing with confusion and guilt. "What are we doing?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Robert admitted, his eyes searching hers, filled with longing. "But it feels right." Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, Emily was torn between the stability Jack provided and the thrilling connection she felt with Robert. Each moment spent with him was a mix of joy and guilt, and as days turned into weeks, her internal conflict deepened. They began sneaking moments together, shared coffees on the patio, whispered conversations in the living room when Jack wasn't home. Each stolen moment felt like a step deeper into a forbidden world. As the weeks passed, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news sent her spiraling into panic. Who was the father? The thought of Jack shattered her heart. She knew she had to tell him, but how could she break his heart when she had already betrayed him? When Jack returned home that evening, he could sense something was off. The house felt charged with unspoken words. After a tense dinner filled with silence, Emily finally confessed, her voice trembling. The truth hit Jack like a freight train. He felt as if the ground had been torn from beneath him. Betrayed by both his father and wife, he stormed out of the house, his heart filled with anger and despair. In the days that followed, Jack confronted Robert. The confrontation was explosive, filled with accusations and fury. "How could you do this to me, Dad?" Jack shouted, his voice trembling with anguish. Robert, feeling cornered, tried to justify his actions. "You were never there for her, Jack. I gave her what she needed." Jack couldn't bear to look at his father. He felt a mix of betrayal and sadness, realizing that the man he once admired had become a stranger. Unable to stay in the same house, Jack moved out, taking refuge with Sarah, the maid who had always been a constant source of support and understanding. Sarah was a warm-hearted young woman who had been with the family for years, and she provided Jack with the comfort he desperately needed. As Jack started to rebuild his life, he found solace in Sarah's company. She was kind, empathetic, and had always been there for him, even before the chaos unfolded. They grew closer, sharing their dreams and fears, and slowly, a new love began to blossom. Jack found comfort in her laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the betrayal he had faced. They would often take long walks along the beach, where they talked about their aspirations and hopes for the future. Meanwhile, Emily struggled with her pregnancy. Alone and filled with regret, she realized the enormity of her choices. She missed Jack, the life they had built together, and the unwavering support he had always provided. Every night, she lay awake, haunted by memories of happier times. The weight of her decisions pressed down on her, and she knew she had to make amends, not just for herself, but for her son. As the months passed, Jack and Sarah grew more intimate. Their bond deepened, and Jack found himself slowly healing from the wounds of betrayal. Sarah encouraged him to think about what he truly wanted in life, and he began to envision a future with her. They started planning little adventures together, exploring the beautiful California coastline, visiting art galleries, and attending music festivals. Each experience brought them closer, and Jack began to realize he could find happiness again. The day finally came when Emily gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Holding the child in her arms, she felt a mix of joy and sorrow. She realized she had to reach out to Jack, hoping to forge a path forward for their son. After much internal debate, she finally mustered the courage to call him. With a heavy heart, Jack agreed to meet. When they sat down together at a small cafe overlooking the ocean, the air was thick with tension. Emily, tears streaming down her face, apologized profusely, explaining how lost she had become. "I made terrible mistakes, Jack. I was so lonely and confused. I never wanted to hurt you." Jack listened, his heart torn. He still loved her, but the betrayal felt like a wound that might never heal. "You broke my trust, Emily," he said softly, his voice steady but pained. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I want to co-parent Jack. For our son," she pleaded, her voice quivering with emotion. "He deserves both of us." Jack looked at the baby, a mix of hope and heartache flooding his mind. In that moment, he realized that while the past could not be changed, he could choose to move forward for the sake of the child. They discussed their plans, setting boundaries, and establishing a co-parenting arrangement that prioritized their son's well-being. Jack agreed to visit the baby regularly, and Emily promised to respect Jack's new relationship with Sarah. As time passed, Jack and Emily established a functional co-parenting relationship. They learned to communicate effectively, setting aside their past to focus on their son. Jack also continued his relationship with Sarah, who became an integral part of his life. With her by his side, he felt a sense of stability and happiness that he thought was lost forever. Jack introduced Sarah to their son, and she embraced the role with warmth and affection. Slowly, Sarah became a loving presence in the child's life, and Jack found joy in watching their family grow, even in this unconventional way. They spent weekends at the beach, building sandcastles, and creating new memories that would last a lifetime. Emily, too, began to heal. She enrolled in parenting classes and sought therapy to process her feelings of guilt and regret. She worked hard to become a better mother, learning how to nurture her son while also respecting Jack and Sarah's role in his life. The three of them began to share moments together, attending birthday parties and family gatherings, slowly blending their lives into a tapestry of love and acceptance. Robert, after realizing the consequences of his actions, sought redemption. He reached out to Jack, hoping to mend their broken relationship. It wasn't easy. Years of resentment and betrayal had created deep wounds, but slowly, they began to rebuild their bond, understanding that forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. Jack invited Robert over for dinner one evening, and they shared stories, laughter, and the painful lessons they had learned. Years later, as Jack sat on the porch of his coastal home with Sarah, watching their children play in the yard, he reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought them here. Life had thrown them into chaos, but through pain and betrayal, they discovered resilience, love, and the importance of forgiveness. Jack realized that while the past could never be changed, it had shaped him into a better person. He had learned that love could be complex, messy, and sometimes heartbreaking, but ultimately, it was about choosing to move forward and create a new path filled with hope and joy. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the landscape and illuminating the waves crashing against the shore, Jack smiled. He had built a life filled with love and support, a life where he could be proud of who he had become. If this story resonates with you, kindly leave a comment and like, share, and subscribe. Until then, stay blessed.